Catastrophic military blunders that changed history. It takes years to build an empire, but a single mistake to bring it crashing down. History is littered with military blunders so catastrophic they changed the course of entire civilizations. Armies have marched into disaster, commanders have gambled their nations on reckless decisions, and leaders have let arrogance cloud their judgment. Some of these blunders were so devastating they reshaped the world as we know it. Picture this. Napoleon Bonaparte, the man who conquered Europe, is standing on the windswept plains of Russia in 1812. He has led the Grand Armée, 600,000 men strong, into the heart of the enemy's land, confident of a swift victory. But what he fails to account for is the Russian winter, an enemy more ruthless than any army. As temperatures plummet to 40 degrees below zero, his men begin to die by the thousands. Frostbite, starvation, and relentless Russian attacks turn his mighty force into a ragged, broken mass. By the time the remnants of his army limp back across the frozen rivers, fewer than 100,000 remain. Napoleon's dream of European domination is over, undone not by battle, but by a brutal miscalculation of nature itself. But Napoleon was not the first leader to let hubris drag him into disaster. Nearly 1,500 years earlier, another empire made an even graver mistake, one that would bring the mighty Romans to their knees. It was the year 9 A.D., and 3 Roman legions, commanded by the ambitious and overconfident General Varus, were marching through the dense and unfamiliar Teutoburg forest. Unbeknownst to them, a Germanic chieftain named Arminius, once a trusted ally, had carefully orchestrated a trap. As the Romans trudged deeper into the forest, the narrow paths and thick trees left them vulnerable. Then, without warning, chaos erupted. Germanic warriors swarmed from the trees, raining spears and slashing through the Roman ranks. For 3 days, the legions fought desperately, but there was no escape. Varus, realizing the hopelessness of the situation, fell on his own sword. When the dust settled, 20,000 Roman soldiers lay dead, their bodies left to rot in the wilderness. The massacre shattered Rome's ambitions of expanding eastward, a mistake so severe that Emperor Augustus was said to have wandered his palace wailing, "Quinctilius Varus, give me back my legions!" Some blunders are the result of arrogance, others, pure carelessness. Take, for instance, the ill-fated charge of the Light Brigade in 1854. The Crimean War was raging, and British cavalry commander Lord Cardigan had been given an unclear order: charge the enemy. But due to a breakdown in communication, Cardigan misunderstood the objective. Instead of attacking a retreating Russian artillery position, he led his 600 men straight into the teeth of an unscathed battery of cannons. The result was a massacre. As cannon fire ripped through their ranks, soldiers and horses crumpled to the ground. In just minutes, nearly half the brigade was wiped out. It was an act of gallantry, yes, but one born from a tragic mistake. Even the Russians, stunned by the suicidal bravery of the attack, reportedly called it madness. Then, of course, there is the D-Day rehearsal that turned into a catastrophe. In 1944, as Allied forces prepared for the largest amphibious invasion in history, they conducted a massive practice operation off the coast of England. Known as Exercise Tiger, it was meant to simulate the real thing: landing crafts, beach assaults, live ammunition. But something went terribly wrong. German U-boats lurking in the English Channel intercepted unencrypted radio transmissions and launched a surprise attack. Chaos ensued. Within minutes, torpedoes slammed into the unsuspecting Allied ships. Over 700 American soldiers died, not in battle, but in a training exercise. The blunder was so disastrous that it was covered up for decades, as officials feared it would shatter morale before the real invasion. And yet, perhaps the greatest military blunder of all belongs to a man whose name is synonymous with disaster: Adolf Hitler. By 1941, Nazi Germany had steamrolled through Europe. Confident in his invincibility, Hitler launched Operation Barbarossa, the largest military invasion in history, against the Soviet Union. It was a gamble that cost him everything. Just as Napoleon had learned a century before, Hitler's armies found themselves bogged down by the vast, freezing landscapes of Russia. German troops, unprepared for the brutal winter, starved and froze to death by the thousands. The turning point came at Stalingrad, where Soviet forces encircled and annihilated an entire German army. From that moment on, the Nazi war machine was in retreat, and Hitler's empire was doomed. History remembers the victors, but it never forgets the blunders. Some mistakes cost battles, others cost empires. The smallest miscalculation, the slightest hesitation, the most minor lapse in judgment. These are the cracks through which entire civilizations have fallen. And if history has taught us anything, it's that no empire, no leader, no army is immune to the devastating power of a single catastrophic mistake.